Hey, Sister Sherry. Hello there, Miracle. Sister Sherry, you just not on your way home from work? Oh my goodness. Well, I hope not from work. I'm not going to get in your business. Just be safe out there. Hey, everybody. This is Mother Teresa. Thank you all so very much for joining me on tonight for Grandstanding with Mother Teresa. I hope you've had a great week. I know today is only Tuesday and your week is just getting started, but I hope you've had a great week thus far. And not only a great week thus far, but also that the rest of your week will be enjoyable as well. So listen. We all know what the month of February entails. And if y'all see me looking down, I'm trying to make sure that I am looking to see. I do not want to miss anybody's messages and comments. So I want to be able to see who is here with me. But y'all know what we celebrate the month of February. Guess what? We celebrate Black History Month. And so, because we celebrate Black History Month, I wanted to just share with you all a little bit about Black history and what it actually means to me. And I know we've got couple of more weeks in the month of February that we can actually talk about. Hello there, Candace Sunshine. Are the babies watching with you? And if so, are they saying, "Mommy, mommy"? But listen, I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about Black history, and I want y'all to put in the comments what Black history means to you. So I'm going to talk about what I think is, for me, where Black history starts. For me as a person, and it would have to be with my grandparents. It would have to definitely be with Odell and Elroy Stearns and their little, from the little community called Fellowship. For those of you all who are familiar with Nacogdoches, you know that, well, some of y'all may not know, but Fellowship is a community right before you get to Woden. And let me just tell you, I have to say that as I was growing up as a child, there was probably no place that, other than being at home, that I enjoyed being more than in Fellowship. Let me just tell you, and these are my maternal grandparents. So this is my mama's mommy and daddy. And I don't know if mama is on here yet. So Miracle, you may have to call Jamarlin and make sure he's got her logged on. But these are my mother's parents. And let me just tell you, the way that it would always start out is on the weekends. We would get up, we would have to do all of our chores. That meant that we had to do our cleaning, we had to get everything done in the house, and we would have to make sure that our chores were completed before we could go to Fellowship. And what we would do is we would pile up in my mom's car, whichever car it was. It may have been a small little car. And my husband teases me when he talks about, one of the cars that my mom had. And he would say that all of those kids would pile out of that little bitty car. And I think he was talking about the little white Comet that she used to have. I think it was a Comet. But anyway, so our order of business was on the weekends, we would do our chores. And after, hello there, Contessa. Hello there, Tina. I'm so glad that you all were able to come on tonight. So we would do our chores, and then, hello there, Stephanie. We would do our chores, and then we would get ready to go to fellowship. So that meant that whatever we needed to do, we had to get it all done. And we were going to go to fellowship to be with our grandparents. We call Big Mama and Big Daddy, and our cousins, our uncles, our aunties. And we were going to have a good old time, you all. My granddaddy, Big Daddy is what we called him. My Big Daddy owned Stern's Barbecue. And Stern's Barbecue was this little green, I guess it was like I won't say it's a restaurant because it could probably only fit about 10 to 15 people. But it was Stern's Barbecue where he made the most amazing barbecue in this world. And his specialty, I think, was his hot link sausage, hot link sandwich. It wasn't a sausage, it was just a hot link. But we would go to fellowship and we would play outside. We would watch the grown folks do their thing, their drinking and dancing and all of the stuff that they did. And as young children, we would just watch and we would just play. And we played outside, you all. We did not play in the house. That was one thing that they did not allow, but we didn't want to play in the house. We would just play. We would run up and down the road. We would go down to the little creek and we would walk through the little creek. We would, we were just exploring the little street that they lived on. And it wasn't very far. We would not get very far away from the house, but we would do that. And let me just tell you, we had the absolute best time as young people being able to spend time with our grandparents. And all the while we were spending time with our grandparents, I can look it back as an adult now, and I could just see how they were sharing with us not only what it was like to be a part of a family, but also the expectations for being in a family, in a loving family, in a close-knit family. I cannot recall that they were not fussing with each other. They were not fighting. It was just a lot of laughter. There was a lot of singing, because my family, they would love to sing. But it was not any of the, getting into it and fighting and arguing and whatever. They were just having a good old time. And as young people, I can just remember, as a young person, I can just remember the times that I would have a conversation like with my big mama or my big daddy, but especially like my big mama. She would share with us so many things from what she could remember of her childhood. Now, Big Daddy he would share a little bit, but let me just tell you, Stern was their last name, and Big Daddy was pretty stern. He had that face that kind of looked like he wasn't playing, but he was the most loving grandfather that I could have ever had. But I just remember the lessons now that I take away from my childhood. First of all, they were teaching us about family. They were teaching us about love. They were teaching us about fellowship. They were teaching us about how to care for one another. They were teaching and sharing with us their legacy, the things that they had been taught, from generation to generation. And again, I will state what they could remember, because a lot of the stories that I would ask my grandmother, sometimes, because as I became an adult, I began to do genealogy. And so I was curious about, who were your parents? Where did they come from? And I was just into that, all of that about trying to figure out who my people were. And so as I began to just really just kind of dig into what was this all about, where were they from? What were they all about? Sometimes they would say, I can't remember. I don't recall. But there were other times that they would share different things, and I was like, wow, that happened? And then there were other times that they would say to us, let sleeping dogs lie. And of course, what that meant was that was a conversation that they were not going to have with us. They were not going to share any of that information because, first of all, maybe they didn't know, or could it have been detrimental to us as, as adults. But then there were just secrets that they just did not want us to know about. And so, but I go back to talking about, my grandparents. And I don't know how many of you all had relationships like this with your grandparents or even remember your grandparents. If you do, hey there, mama, you're on. You're on. I'm talking about Big Mama and Big Daddy on tonight. But if you do have memories of your grandparents, see, they may not be the same loving memories that I have of my grandparents. And if you don't, I'm so sorry. I really am, because I feel like you missed out on what having loving grandparents were all about. And so, and as a grandparent, as a mommy now, which my grandchildren call me mommy, but I try to model what my grandparents did. And I'm not going to say every single thing. I'm talking about the love and the caring that I felt as a child. I try to model that, because not only do I try to model that from my grandparents, but then my mom learned that from her parents, and in turn she models that for us. And so this is a legacy, a rich, rich legacy that I wish everybody could have experienced. And if you had experiences like that as a child with your grandparents, put it in the chat. Tell me about your relationship and what you remembered as a from your grandparents. Now, one of the things that I will share with you all, and I shared this a little bit earlier with another audience. I was talking about Big Mama's canning room. Now, let me just tell you, my grandparents had this huge, huge farm. And yes, Miracle, I thank God every day. So they had this huge farm that they raised their vegetables, and they had fruit trees, and they had their animals, like the pigs and the chickens. And I know Big Mama had some rabbits, and I think Mama said they had a horse, and I'm not sure, was the horse name Old May? Mama, I'm not sure. That may not have been the name of the horse. But anyway, my assumption is that that horse was used to help plow the garden. But one of the things that I can recall is that in Big Mama's house, now let me just tell you about the house. Looking at the house when I was a little kid, the house looked huge. It looked like it was such a big, big house. And it really wasn't, because the older that I got, and as I became an adult, I realized that their house was rather small, and rather small for Big Mama and Big Daddy had 15 children. But I can recall that that house seemed like it was so big when I was growing up. And let me just tell you, in Big Mama's house, she had a canning room. And I can remember the canning room where it had the shelves. And it wasn't the shelves that you go to the store and buy. It was shelves that I'm quite sure Big Daddy had built. So they were his makeshift shelves that he had built to go in Big Mama's canning room. And in the canning room, uh, in that canning room, Miracle said, I remember that big, uh, that black pot-bellied pig. Okay, Miracle. Um, but anyway, the canning room, it would have Big Mama's things in there that's from the garden. And basically, you went in there to get what you needed. And I can recall on occasion, that Big Mama would tell me to go in there and get a very specific thing. And let me just say, you went in there and you picked up whatever you needed. And while I'm a kid, I'm looking all around the room thinking, oh my gosh, this looks so amazing. But I knew to go in there and get whatever she needed me to get and come on back out of there and close the door. And so that's a memory that I will have probably forever. And and there were other things. And let me just say, in the early days, Big Mom and Big Daddy, they did not have a indoor toilet. Just like a lot of other families, because they live in the country. So they didn't have that. So we would have to go to the outhouse, which was way back in the back of the garden. And you went out there and you did your business. And you there was no Charmin or Angel Soft, but you went out there, you did your business, and you came on back. Okay. So, and also one of the other things that I remember is that for a long time, there was no indoor, they didn't have the indoor water. Okay. And so guess what we had to do, you all? And some of you all, this is nothing, probably mind blowing for you all, depending on what age you are. But for some, this may be. But they had a well. And so in all of the water, this fresh water would come from the well. Now the well water always had an aftertaste. But let me tell you all how times are so very different. Big Mama and Big Daddy in their kitchen, they had the bucket, a big tin bucket. I say tin, it may have been aluminum. I'm not sure what it was made out of. Mama probably can tell you. She said that was their riding horse. Okay, their riding horse, not necessarily for the field, but for their riding horse. Um, but they had a big bucket, and this bucket had a dipper that hung on the side of the bucket. And whenever you wanted water, you would just go in there and you would just use that dipper to get you some water, and then you would drink it. And then you would put the dipper back on the side of the bucket. Now let me just tell you, for a long time, you were not going to be using any cups. Everybody was going to be drinking out of that same dipper. And let me just tell you, I don't think that any of us got sick. Okay, it says bring somebody on the video. Is somebody trying to come on the video? Let's see. Okay, hold on. Hello there, brother Anthony. I'm talking about my grandparents. I'm honoring them for Black History Month. But yeah, we would drink out of that dipper, and when we would finish, we would hang that dipper back on that tin bucket, and we would go on about our business. And guess what? You think about that right now, and how many people would actually continue to do that? We are so worried about germs, and which we should be, but that was something that we didn't even think about back in the day. We were so busy enjoying the fellowship that we had with our family that we were not even thinking about any of that. And the other thing that I can just recall is that at my grandparents' house in the small town of Fellowship, there were no street lights. There were no street lights whatsoever. So when it was dark, you all, it was dark. It was like pitch black outside. And one of the things that they didn't have street lights, but guess what they had? You could always see the stars in the sky. We were in the country, but we could always see the stars in the sky. Now, I don't know where a lot of you all live, but how many of you all can go outside right now and look up at the sky and actually see the stars in the sky? But we could see those stars in the sky when we were in Fellowship. And so that's one of the things that some of the things that I remember, as a kid when we would go to Fellowship on the weekends. And sometimes we had the pleasure of spending the night with our grandparents. And of course, there were not enough beds. So guess what? You were going to make a pallet. And you all know what a pallet is, where you get a blanket or a quilt, which was probably back in the day. You were probably going to get one of Big Mama's quilts, and you were going to make those quilts on the floor, and you were going to sleep wherever, okay? But guess what we would do for the next morning? And this is one of the things that I was sharing with somebody the other day. And I can remember just like it was yesterday. Big Mama first of all, Big Mama and Big Daddy got married. My Big Mama was 12 years old when she got married to my big daddy, and he was 21. Yes, you heard me right. She was 12 and he was 21. And Big Mama used to tell me, when I would talk to her, she said, I didn't know anything about being a wife. She called him Elroy. She said, when Elroy would go to work, she said, I would get outside and I would play out in the yard. I would just be playing in the mud. I would get those dolls, those little, I guess she would make the little dolls out of whatever they made dolls with. And she said, I would just be having a good old time. Well, of course, she was only 12 years old. So she would go out there and play and do whatever. And then when Big Daddy, I guess would come home, it was time to try to be a wife, try to be an adult. But, and soon after, she did have her own little baby. They had 15 children, so she had to put away the dolls because she had a real life baby to take care of. But one of the things that I was going to share with you all, as I'm kind of wrapping up my story about my grandparents, is that for breakfast, remember I told you all that they had all of this, they had the chickens and they had this and they had that. But I can recall for breakfast that this is what we were going to have. We were going to have rice. We were going to have probably homemade biscuits. And we were going to have probably some of Big Daddy's syrup or some syrup that he had. And either we were going to have fried chicken backs, or we were going to have what was called fried mackerels or salmon croquettes. Now, Mama, you're on here, and you can tell me that's the breakfast that I remember. And it was a variation of that every single weekend that we spent the night there. Now, we didn't spend the night there every single weekend, but sometimes it may get a little bit too late and we may spend the night, or my mom would just allow us to spend the night. But let me just tell you all, as I think about Black history and I think about all the history and all the people that so many people know, and those who are in the history books, and those who are on the posters, and those whose names are in the history books. My grandparents' names are not in a history book, at least not those type of history books. But their life and their legacy will forever live on in my heart, in the hearts of their descendants. And with 15 children, there are a lot of descendants. And I just want to challenge you all for the month of February. I challenge you all to realize and to come to terms with what Black history really means to you. Because we can think about Black history, and again, we can talk about all of the famous people that are in the history books, those that are known. But what about the people? What about the people that are not so known, that are not so well documented in the history books? Hold on. Oh my goodness. Brother Anthony said, coming from a large family, we have so much in common. I remember going to Big Mama and Big Daddy's house, spending the night eating good home cooked meals, biscuits, and homemade baked goods. Absolutely, that's right. And one of the other things that my grandma would cook was the bread pudding. I think it was bread pudding. It was so good. Oh my gosh. But going back to, I challenge you all to discover your history, because your history is your history. You hear people say that I am Black history. I am Black history 365 days out of the year. And for so many of us, and I know that everybody that's listening to this is not African American, but whatever your history is, know your history, know your lineage, know your ancestors, know more about them. Get in the history books and find out where you came from. Find out the different things that has happened to make you who you are. And the only way that we're going to do this, the only way that we're going to know this, is that we're going to have to listen to the people that are still here. My mom is on here on this call tonight. She is 81 years old. And my mom has stories that she is sharing, not sharing with me. She's sharing with me. She's sharing with the rest of the family. So Miracle, and whoever the rest of you all are, that's right there in Nacogdoches with my mom, y'all listen to the stories. Y'all listen and listen intently, because it's going to come a time where we're going to be wanting to hear these stories. And then we're going to be all gone. We're going to be all gone. So you're going to have to depend upon your memory and the things that have been shared with you all. So again, in honor of Black history, I just would like to just honor my grandparents and just say to my mom who's here, Mom, we honor you. We honor you for the life and the legacy that you have lived before us. And we are so very grateful. We are so very grateful for the things that you have taught us and the path that you have laid, really the foundation that you have laid for us. And so we honor you and we thank you so very much. You all, it has been a great night grandstanding. I thought the time was over, but it's not quite. But I just want to again challenge you all to just make sure you know who you are, know where you come from, so you know where you're going. And a lot of times people say that history, if we don't know our history, it definitely will repeat itself. And history just, it does repeat itself. But you want to know where you come from. You want to know as much about your family members as you possibly can. You know, I discovered some things about our family that that I didn't know, and I learned them from my cousin O.D. Stearns, who had quite a bit to tell us about, had a lot to tell me about my grandparents. And it was great information that I shared with my mom. But I can also tell you that there are countless other stories that we will never ever hear about. We will never hear about. Because remember, I said that whenever I would talk to my grandparents, and I don't know if I share this on this platform or another platform, but as I became an adult, I was interested in genealogy and I was studying our family history. You know, after the movie Roots came on, everybody wanted to study their, know where they came from and everything. And so as I was doing that, I can recall on occasions where I would try to get Big Mama and Big Daddy to talk about certain things. And for some, they were okay with talking about it. They would freely tell me all of the things that they could remember. And there were a lot of things that they could not remember, they could not recall. But then there were other things that I was told to let sleeping dogs lie. And guess what that meant? That meant we were not going to talk about that. That meant that that story was not going to be shared. It was not going to be told, because there were secrets. There were secrets that they wanted to keep as a secret. And sometimes when the secrets are such that they're saying, let sleeping dogs lie, that meant that there was some stuff that it could have been shameful, it could have been embarrassing, it could have been a whole lot of other things that I can think of, but they didn't want to talk about it, and that was their business. So I had no business trying to persuade them to talk about it. So there are different things like that. Sister Sherry, let me see what you got. We honor and salute your mother. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Miracle says she's very grateful. She loves you, Mima. Sister Sherry said, my maternal grandparents had a fig tree in their backyard. I would eat the figs right off the tree without washing them off. She said, those were the sweetest figs. I know. I know. My grandparents had a pear tree. Now, they may have had other trees in their yard, but a lot of times, Sister Sherry, we didn't take the time to wash that stuff off. We just would pick those pears and we would just eat them, just right out of the garden, out of the backyard. So, those are lots of sweet, sweet memories. And let me just tell you, there are so many different memories that we can think about when we think about our grandparents. And I hope yours is just as heartfelt as mine. And again, like I said, I wanted to just share this first February, first Tuesday in February where I did grandstanding, I felt like it was befitting to talk about my grandparents because, even though I remember not only my maternal grandparents, but I actually remember my paternal grandmother. I don't have as much of a memory about her, but I still remember my other grandma, Big Mama Beulah. But then on the flip side, my granddaddy's mother and father, which would have been my great grandparents, who was my mom's grandparents, I even remember them. And what a blessing it is to have known not only your grandparents, but to know your great grandparents as well. So when I say that I am blessed beyond measure, I really, really am. I really am. And I'm so very grateful to have each of you all to stop by and to visit with me on tonight and to leave your kind messages and to share some of your stories about your history, about your grandparents. Don't let this end. Keep talking about your grandparents. Keep talking about your family, because let me just tell you, family is all that we have. In the scope of things, family is all that we have, and it's the most important thing that we have. So this has been a great night grandstanding with you all, and I'm going to tell you, like my sister Cynthia would say, is good night, grandstanders. I hope that you all have had a great time grandstanding with Mother Teresa. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you again on next Tuesday. Grab a friend, let them know that I am on every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. You can catch me right here on Facebook Live unless something happens. This is also broadcast on YouTube. And if you're not a subscriber on YouTube for the other Mother Teresa, you all are missing quite a bit of content, because there's a whole lot of things that I share on YouTube that you all will never see on Facebook. So you got to get over to my YouTube page and you all have to check me out. Y'all have a good night, everybody. I'm going to let you all listen to a little bit of In the Meantime, which is my theme music by my grandson, TJ. Y'all enjoy your night. Bye-bye, everybody. Good night, grandstanders. We'll see you all on the next time. Bye-bye, everybody.